my limit, so that's it.
You sure you want to be here?
Yes, I do.
Are you absolutely sure?
I'm positive.
Whatever you have to do, just find an excuse to win. Keep going.
It pays to be aware.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Cold War Radio Live from our home base, WAAR. We are America Radio, your number one source for government and political talk anywhere, coming to you from the Steel City Resistance Studio in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr., deep down in the broadcast bunker, and we weren't sure if we were going to connect. But from Ice Station North Studio, somewhere on the Norwegian Sea, let's welcome Norway to the program. What's going on, Norway?
A Muslim, a communist, and a former CIA director walk into a bar, and the bartender says, "Well, you have, Mr. Brennan." Good evening, Hutch and Jack, and good evening to our lovely audience gathered around the radio sets in the 1,000 homes. This is Radio Norway coming to you from Ice Station North Studio in a smooth summer night hovering around 65 degrees. Looking forward to a fun hour this Saturday evening.
And you are coming in 5 by 5, sir, no problem, from the Shenandoah Valley Studio in Virginia. Please come in, Jack.
Yeah, hey Hutch, hey Norway, and hello everyone tuned in on Spreaker and everyone in the Spreaker chat room. If I may, can I give the call-in number?
You may.
Immediately? Because we had confusion last week, but I want to get this out there right now. If you'd like to call into the show, please dial 412-206-6208 and join the show. Thanks, Hutch.
Yes, sir. Follow me on Spreaker, ladies and gentlemen. Like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio 22. You can catch the show on Roku. Just dial in Blueberry or YouTube. The 405media.com plays the show throughout the week, and Cold War Radio is an iHeart radio program. You can also get the free Cold War Radio app for your iPhone or Android device. And, ladies and gentlemen, we are now also a proud member on the Spotify platform. So if you have your young kids and things that are into Spotify or whoever's into music that way, you can dial in Cold War Radio and catch the show there. The email is hutch@steelcityresistance.com, and as Jack said, the Cold War Radio patron hotline, 412-206-6208. The chat room is up on Spreaker. You don't want to miss that. And also, please go to steelcityresistance.com. You can catch the research room for everything you need to know to argue with your liberal neighbors, or even more importantly, become a Cold War Radio patron. If you want to send mail, it's Hutch Bailey Jr., P.O. Box 96022, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 15226. This is Cold War Radio on We Are America Radio, WAAR. Now, guys, I haven't seen or heard of Stacy for a while. I don't know what's going on there, but that happens. If you happen to see her in the chat room, tell her to call the hotline, and we'll get her right on the program. That's for sure. I wanted to go over some things. Well, let me get some of the inside baseball stuff out of the way. Wayne, I want to thank Wayne M. for becoming a patron, and also Susanna. Got to call her out one more time for her above and beyond support of the program. Thank you very much, Susanna. Susanna has allowed us to have our new interface system, which is the reason that the telephone number changed, is something that we're not completely dependent on Microsoft and Skype all the time going through all that. So thank you very much, and thanks to all of our patrons here at Cold War Radio. Now, let's get into some stuff, because we've got some really important things going on. I'm sure you guys are following the quote-unquote First Amendment argument being made, and it's really not a First Amendment argument yet. It's more of a civil rights violation, but we'll talk about that a little bit. But Bill Maher made a surprising display of mistaken patriotism. I don't think he did it on purpose, but he actually was criticizing the ban on Alex Jones. He mentioned it, and then his audience went stupid, and some of his panel members were cheering it on, and he said, no, if you're going to be for the First Amendment, that means that Alex Jones gets to speak. So this is something that we need to have this. Well, we don't just need to have this argument. We need to win this argument, Jack.
Well, he's absolutely right, and I'm no fan of Bill Maher, but I'm not trying to shut him down and silence his voice. The entire Alex Jones shutting down his thing, I think, it just goes back to the 2016 election, in which his website and his reporters were so key in exposing the some key facts about the Clinton campaign, her health issues, and all this, that the mainstream media was completely hiding from the public. So when Alex Jones thing happened, when it was multiple platforms, and it's been more as this week's gone on, that have basically said no more Alex Jones. They're trying to choke him out. But the thing is it goes back to the elections. We got the biggest elections coming up in our history, in my lifetime, in these midterms. And the mainstream media doesn't want us to know that. But the outlets like this one, Wayne Dupree Show, and other independent news and opinion places are putting it out there how important this election is. And the mainstream media doesn't want, they want America to be asleep for this midterm, like most midterms are.
Why do you think they're pushing weed everywhere?
Everything they're doing with the distractions, the faux outrage, the gatherings that they're having, the unleashing Antifa in the summertime. I mean, I can't wait for school to get back in, because most of them have to at least be professors in universities, don't they?
Absolutely. I want to welcome Robert Underwood, a very distinguished member of the chat room, been with me for quite some time. Good evening, Robert. And he's right. Bill has always been a First Amendment advocate. He doesn't. He makes sure that he prefaces it with a whole lot of digs against whoever he's talking about. But he did set his panel straight, Norway.
Come again?
Nothing. Just jump in there whenever you feel like it.
Oh, I heard you talked about Bill Maher, and to be honest, the only time I kind of cheer a little for the guy is when he's talking about Islam, because he is actually pretty much on point when it comes to that. But other than that, it's just a waste of time. I guess, you at least you had. I'm not so sure nowadays, but you had degrees from the liberal to the progressive to the socialist and communist categories of left side politics in the United States. Nowadays, it all seems like a socialist / communist hodgepodge to me.
Yeah, the socialism is on the soft end anymore.
Come again?
The socialism part is on the soft end anymore. They're going to the left.
Oh, yeah, that's actually on the soft end. I mean, if you look at the so-called Democratic Party nowadays, it reminds you of the Communist Party USA. But I think Bill Maher probably sorts in the category of the old liberals, and where he tries to hold up, ideals like free speech and freedom for everybody, including women, which is probably one of the reasons why he's such an avid proponent of Islam. But as long as it touts all the rest of what is perceived as liberal politics today, it doesn't matter, because liberal politics today, it's all about dictatorship. It's all about the totalitarian idea, which is prevalent everywhere, including especially social media today. So, he doesn't score a point with me for defending free speech when all his friends are for actually de facto dictatorship.
No, you're right. And let me tell you a little story about Bill Maher. Bill Maher is actually a fake. A friend of mine, you people, I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but his name's Evan Sayet. And he's a friend of mine, and he told me a story one time. He used to work for the Bill Maher show when Bill Maher was in New York. And he said when Bill Maher was in New York, he had to walk by the cabbies and everything like that. And he said he wasn't as liberal as he is now. When he moved to L.A., he moved into a gated community where if he wasn't like he is now, he would be shut out. So that just a little point in there. Just I don't know if it still holds true, but it did at the time. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. I still don't like Bill Maher. I never will. But it's good to see that some people are starting to realize the universal evil that the left is spewing. And it's actually part of it's from Congress, But anyway, let's keep an eye on that. But the president is also on point. He has finally come out and condemned social media companies for their biased censorship, and we know that they're allowed to do it. Now, there was a good argument made by Wild Bill for America that said if you look at all the people who are getting shut down, the common denominator in most of them is Christian beliefs and ideals that are getting shut down, and that there's a good case for a civil rights suit to say that they're censoring us as opposed to other people. So that's a thought, but we'll see. I don't know. Does that make any sense to you, Jack?
Yeah, well, the one thing with those top three that are mainly shadow banning, stifling, banning conservative and Christian speech is a lot of those top three have big contracts with the federal government. And I think there should be something in place where if you are getting taxpayer money to the tune of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, then you're held to a higher standard. You can't use this private business thing, as far as what they're trying to say, that they can just willy-nilly, because they're a private business, they could shut people out. I think if you're getting taxpayer money, there should be another set of rules that you follow. You can't just pick and choose who you want to shut out, because most of the time when they're doing this, and by the time the wrong is righted, because a lot of times it'll be a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden somebody will be released from internet jail, and they act like everything's cool. But you don't know the damage that has already been done by silencing them during key parts. The movement that was trying to go into D.C., they shut down Gavin McInnes when his group was going in there for their rally, and completely wiped them off of Twitter. So their venue to the people was gone. So now if they're reinstated, the damage is already done. To
they did. The IRS did the same thing with the Tea Party, to the detriment of possibly the presidential election. You never know if they would have been granted the proper status. Now, Norway, this kind of thing always puts us on the slippery slope as conservatives. We're not all about government regulation and things of that nature. But when you look at something like this, and something also, I've said it before, in the education system about mandatory curriculum when it comes to the Constitution and things and civics, we don't want to go down that road where we give this mighty power to the federal government. But if corporations are not enforcing fair play on their own, I think this is the ultimate function of a federal government.
Yeah, I've probably become more and more right-leaning throughout the years, and I admire the libertarians. I wouldn't describe myself as a libertarian, but I admire their beliefs in as small a government as possible, and I think it's absolutely the last resort, starting to dictate what companies are supposed to do and not to do. But on the other hand, what kind of legislation is there really about social media, which is so important in today's society? I mean, you have environmental rules for companies that, for instance, a chemical company. So the question is it appropriate with some sort of rule? I think that the biggest challenge is actually education. You need to re-educate people, to use a really bad term, but you need to educate people about civics, about what the freedom of speech really means, and you need to root out these idiotic safe spaces in universities around the country.
Absolutely. I don't know how we're going to manage this social media thing. I don't. I mean, the worst case scenario, and don't think it's not possible, is the government takeover of it. And I don't condone that, because the government is vanilla today and it'll be chocolate tomorrow. I mean, you don't know who's going to be running the show, and that's why you have to be very careful with the power that you give to the government, and the Congress is feeling that pain right now for all the power they gave to Obama and the Democrat Senate and things like that. So it is a slippery slope, but we will pay attention. I hope it doesn't negatively affect the elections, but it is possible. But we'll deal with that when we get there, because there's really not enough time to do it now. What we should have done is we should have had the foresight to create some platforms ourselves before these platforms that are out there now. It's almost like a pipe dream to say, all right, let's go to WeMe or let's go to Gab or because it's already part of people's lives. It's an infrastructure in our lives, and it's easy to say we're going to go there, but it just I don't know. We're going to have to follow it and see where we go with it. I want to shift a little bit, guys, to the fires in the West. I was a firefighter for many years, and in a rural area, and one of the things that we trained on was management of wildlands. And what's happened in California is the environmentalists in California, there's a very natural flow of events that was produced by someone named God, who realized that when you have a vast forest, and this started when there wasn't even people there, you have vast forest and you have brush on the ground, and everything between the ground and the first branch of the tree is called ladder fuel. And once once that flame climbs up that ladder fuel and hits that first branch, it's over. That's when you have a full-blown forest fire. But it takes a while for that to happen. And what God did was God decided to have spring. And so he decided that we're going to have all this wind that's going to dry everything up and going to blow all the leaves around and everything. And then we're going to have thunderstorms. And the lightning is going to come down, and it's going to light that brush, and it's going to burn off. And by summertime, everything's going to be fine. But we decided that we're going to fight these fires every time they come. So pretty soon you have what you have in California now. And you have every time that a fire starts, you notice that you don't have these fires at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where they fire more ordnance into the woods than any lightning storm will do, because they have controlled burns. And they go in there every year. They go in there and they burn the ladder fuel off. But in California, let's listen to the Secretary of the Interior, who I think is a rising star, by the way, Mr. Zinke.
Zinke, absolutely.
Yeah, let's listen to him for a second and see how what his take is.
And the environmentalists, many of them the radical environmentalist groups, are you having active discussions, and are they relenting in any way in what has been just a wrong-headed approach to forest management?
Well, you look at these radical environmental groups. They would rather watch the entire forest burn down than harvest a single tree. And we have, this country imports timber. There's billions of board feet of timber lying on the forest floor, rotting.
Right.
When you look at the housing prices, a leading indicator of those housing prices are timber and materials.
Right.
So it's better to recycle that timber in there and clean up our forest and restore the health of the forest, planting diversity of species.
Are they persuaded?
There are some.
Okay. Well,
today
good.
I was in a conversation with Nature Conservancy. They understand forest management.
I want to turn very quickly to Governor Jay Inslee, again attacking you, saying that you would sell your grandchildren for the oil industry. I mean, you've had to fight this kind of nonsense from the moment you took office. Your response to the governor?
Sad and pathetic that he would inject grandchildren into a conversation. The great state of Washington. I played for the Ducks. I enjoyed playing for the Huskies. It is unbecoming of the great state of Washington. He should apologize. He should apologize not to me, but to the state of Washington for those type of comments.
And I want to turn to this fight that's has erupted over security clearances. Admiral McRaven among those. Unexpectedly, I think surprisingly, you're curious to hear your reaction, weighing in, wanting the president, taking the president to task for lifting the security clearances of an absolutely politicized director of a politicized intelligence agency, and that is the CIA under President Obama.
Well, a security clearance is not a right. It's a privilege. And when you abuse that privilege, then the president has every authority, and he is absolutely right to revoke these security clearances. I know Adam McRaven. I've known him a long time. I respect him. I like him personally. But this is about Brennan. And Brennan lied. We know he lied, and there's others in there. And again,
and then lied
having a
some
security
more.
clearance and lied some more. And having a security clearance for what purpose? To attack the president, to misinterpret, to misinform. Again,
To
security clearance
monetize,
is a privilege.
to monetize his public service, perhaps.
Of course.
All right.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the quality of the audio clip. I had an internal malfunction here in the studio, and we had to go to Plan B for the clips at the last minute. My iPad got a DUI last week and is currently in jail. So we had to do that. I apologize for the clip. I don't have as much control over the quality, but that guy is a rising star. Now, why Lou Dobbs asked him about Brennan, I don't know. But anyway, he's on it. And incidentally, if you've never seen a presidential cabinet meeting, if you go to the website, steelcityresistance.com, and scroll down a little bit, there is a full cabinet meeting that he held a couple days ago where you can hear Secretary Zinke speaking about the same thing. But it's a wonderful thing to watch. If anybody has any doubt that the president is not running stuff, go watch that. It's absolutely transparent. It's the first time it's ever been done. He is setting a precedent, inviting the press into those meetings, and incidentally, they acted like fools at the end. But at least they were quiet during the actual meeting. You can tell that he is a CEO, Norway.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you watch his cabinet meetings, they're sort of informal, but at the same time, amazingly effective. There isn't much small talk there. Of course, a joke here and there, but he is all about business. And guys, you really have to, if you didn't see that the last cabinet meeting on Thursday, I think it was, you have to go back and watch that. That was absolutely brilliant. I mean, when you look at the economy, Larry Kudlow had a long talk there about the economy growing by 3.2% the last 12 months. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. And during the past administration, it was less than 1%. So, and like Larry Kudlow said, there is no sign that the growth will let up. But I would say that one of the most interesting things beside the economy in this meeting was Zinke's talk about the catastrophic fires now burning 200,000 to 300,000 acres, and dead and dying forests. They make for excellent fuel. I mean, so far this fiscal year, 5.7 million acres of public land has been destroyed by fire at a cost of about $3 billion. And this is a disaster when you think about the fact that America is actually importing the same wood that is the same fine wood that is laying at the bottom of the forest, rotting because of idiotic environmental regulation in California and the surrounding state. So I hope and pray that President Trump will seriously fix that policy because it's broken.
And if you watch the staff meeting, especially for anybody that's ever been to a corporate board meeting or been to a briefing in the military where you're briefing a general officer or higher, you know that, yeah, it's a little bit general in nature, but you don't bring the details to the President of the United States. You shoot in generalities and things like that. And basically what he's doing, and you can see him do it, he was holding his cabinet members accountable for their lane. It was really refreshing to watch because I've been in many of them, and I thought it was the only thing that I noticed that didn't happen was it was so well choreographed that you didn't have to see the chief of staff intervene because the chief of staff's running the show, even that show. So he was sitting off on the end, and everybody knew exactly when their time was. They had their prepared remarks, and like you said, Kudlow, I mean, he went first. Then basically what he said was the biggest news of this year on any front was the economic boom in the United States. He said it's not an uptick, it's not an adjustment, it is a boom. And then he went on to say what Norway said about the sustainable growth and everything like that. So, yeah, go treat yourself to watching that. It's an hour long, so you got to reserve some time, but it's at steelcityresistance.com. Now, I would like to go into an area, and I don't know if my co-hosts are going to be able to do this, but I'm looking at the clock thinking this show's going to last longer than an hour. So we'll just go by ear there, but I'm not going to sacrifice any of this information. I'm going through this from the top to the bottom. Something that I've always said, these Democrat, leftist, communist victim groups are all fake. The feminist movement is fake. The homosexual mafia is fake. And that's what I'm going to talk about right now, the gay mafia. Now, there's a guy that stars on a show, a homosexual, and they call him Queer Eye, or the show's called Queer Eye. And this guy got out there and he said that he suggested that not all Republicans are racist. Well, the homosexual mafia came down on him with both pom-poms, Jack. I mean, they came down on him. Now, he's a fellow homosexual, but they don't care about that. It's not about that. It's about politics, and they jumped right on him.
He went off script, didn't he?
He did.
You know, how dare this man have his own opinion? They did the same thing to the founder of the #WalkAway movement. You know, he's a homosexual from New York, and he just, you know, on his own weighed everything that's going on in the country and said, no, this is not right. And he started the WalkAway movement, and he was attacked just as strongly. And it's to be expected. It's not even a surprise anymore when somebody steps out of line and has their own voice and then uses that voice. There's no time frame. It's going to be immediate attack on that person, defame them, you know. But when people on their side are accused of certain things, like the Minnesota Ellison, what he got accused of, and they still voted him as the candidate for Attorney General, the top cop in the state, after what he was accused of this week. I mean, the hypocrisy is just beyond belief.
And it's never been reported either. You know, I've often said that there's an opportunity right now for somebody with a couple bucks to come out and start a real news network. I mean, I'm talking about a billionaire, somebody that you can get up there with the top networks. Or even better, if one of the top networks would take it upon themselves to say, you know what, we need to work this. This is not working this way. We're losing market share everywhere we go, and start reporting the news properly. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of that next. I want to go back to John Brennan. And I want you to listen to Rachel Maddow, although she's doing it with softball finesse. Watch how she needles Brennan a little bit and how ridiculous he sounds. And he really does sound ridiculous. Let's listen to Rachel Maddow.
Presidents over the centuries, over the generations, some of them have been terrible jerks, if you read the right history books. Some of them have been deliberately divisive. Some of them have had terrible ideas or treated people in their personal lives or even in political life in egregious ways. Your criticism of President Trump rises above that type. Despite what you just articulated here, you've gone further than that. After Helsinki, you were stark and even a little bit scary in your criticism of his behavior. You said it rose to treason.
I said it was nothing short of treasonous.
In this current controversy, that specific comment has been singled out by a number of people as a comment that maybe by you crossed the line. That was maybe
Cross what line?
Well, was it
freedom of speech?
No, I'm not saying that you don't have a right to say it. But do you stand by that consideration? And can you explain, can you elaborate what you mean by treasonous? It's a very serious allegation.
I know what the Russians did in interfering in the election. I have, I'm at 100% confidence in what they did. And for Mr. Trump to stand on that stage in Helsinki with all the world's eyes upon him and to basically said he doesn't understand why would the Russians interfere in the election. He's given Mr. Putin and the Russians a pass time after time after time. And he keeps referring to this whole investigation as a witch hunt, as, bogus, as, and to me, this was an attack against the foundational principle of our great republic, which is the right of all Americans to choose their elected leaders. And for Mr. Trump to so cavalierly just dismiss that, yes, sometimes my Irish...
Go ahead, you can take a break and barf now.
And I did say that it rises to and exceeds the level of high crimes and misdemeanors and is nothing short of treasonous, because he had the opportunity there to be able to say to the world that this is something that happened. It should never, ever happen again. And if Russia tries at all to do it, they're going to pay serious price. I don't expect Mr. Putin to acknowledge it. He's going to deny. But for the President of the United States to continue to prevaricate on this issue, I think does a great injustice and a disservice to the men and women of the intelligence law enforcement community, and does a great disservice to the citizens of the United States.
All right, I can't listen anymore to that guy. But there you go. You get it. He's totally deranged. He's not even in the same ballpark, and we'll talk about him a little bit later. But I just wanted you to hear him say that when he said that Trump committed treason, he didn't mean that Trump committed treason. So that's a pretty good argument for them. It kind of goes along that way. What do you guys think?
He's gone from the attack dog to the victim, right?
That's
all of a sudden, now he's the victim. My freedom of speech. Well, you still have your freedom of speech.
No, I'll tell you something about him. It's an excellent lesson, because one of the things that I've been saying over the last couple weeks is the story is not that this guy got a security clearance. The story is that he got into the CIA to start with, and he worked his way all the way to the top of the CIA. Now, he came in under Reagan, so there was obviously deep state operatives at the CIA during the Reagan administration, because I can't remember the old guy's name, but the guy that ran the CIA at the time would have never let this guy in. He hated communists. So it's just an alert that the deep state and all of this mess that we're dealing with, let me just say this all, none of it started with Obama. It's easy to sit there and blame Obama, but this did not. Obama just finished it off, or tried to. He failed at it too, thank God, because we finally woke up. But this has been going on since Kennedy, and probably before that.
Yeah, and I mean, we really need another. I have said it numerous times, and I'll gladly say it again. We need another McCarthy.
Yeah.
Another guy that understands what communism is and is willing and able to go after it like an attack dog and root it out. And ever since McCarthy, things they've really been sliding in America. I think when it comes to communism, because well, it's mainstream politics today. A lot of the communist manifestos and mainstream politics today.
Right.
In the so-called Democratic Party.
You're right, and the thing is, the shame of it. You bring up McCarthy. Well, who was McCarthy's right-hand man? Richard Nixon. And Richard Nixon had the mantle to take this on. He knew everything, and he went right to China. I mean, I don't know. It's just something. He wasn't a very personable guy, very smart guy, but he was the one that was supposed to bridge that gap, and we all saw where that went. Now, let's talk about something that, just real quick. I saw this, and I know that there's an opioid problem. It's touched me personally, people that I know. But I saw this statistic, and it shocked me. I don't have the article here, but this is a headline for an article, and it says, "Death of a Nation. Drug overdose deaths jumped to record 72,000 last year." That's too many, man. That's more than died in the Korean War Americans. It's more Americans that were killed in the Vietnam War. I mean, it's 72,000. What do you guys think?
It's sobering, and it's absolutely. It really hits you in the gut thinking about all these people. A lot of them. Who knows if among them were the guy that finally solved the riddle of cancer, for instance. I mean, it's cutting the American grass with such a speed that it's worrying. It's really worrying, and it's no wonder that President Trump has put this as one of his foremost policy issues.
Now, this is the third wave of the opioid epidemic, as new synthetics, fentanyl analogs that are 10,000 times as potent as morphine are attributing to the latest surge in deaths. So this is new material being injected, if you will. A lot of people are dying from snorting it. But I don't know, but it's something that we have to get a handle on. They're finding all kinds of smugglers that are smuggling this fentanyl in now. It almost reminds you of an act of war during the Cold War. They did this in Vietnam. They introduced 100% pure heroin to our GIs over there. They got back home, and it was 2%. They didn't know what to do. So anyway, I just wanted to report that on the magnitude of the casualty count, man. That's something. Let me wrap this up with another story that is not being told that you folks need to know about. All you hear from the Never Trumpers and all these geniuses like Ben Shapiro and Glenn Beck and all these people talking about the devastating effects of the tariffs and how turning this back around to pre-1980 days is somehow us starting a trade war. But what happened last week was China has a new respect for the U.S. trade strategy, and they came back to the table last week, and that was not reported anywhere. It's a huge story. There's also reports of jobs being created specifically because of the tariffs. I said on the Wayne Dupree show last night that United States Steel, headquartered in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, is putting $750 million into the Gary, Indiana Works steel mill to retain thousands of jobs for the next 100 years. So don't be fooled by these Thurston Howells from the Weekly Standard or Jonah Goldberg or anybody like that, because we're winning this thing, Jack.
Yes, I mean, it's amazing news. I saw that U.S. Steel thing. I did also see like a counterattack from the left saying that a TV manufacturer in Georgia, I think it was Element TVs.
Yeah, they're everywhere. Everybody has those. I have about 3 of them in my house.
Yeah, they had like a couple hundred workers that are going to be laid off because of these tariffs. So I did some digging into Element and come to find out that they're reasonably cost television that's, quote, assembled in the USA. But what they did was they basically imported all of this stuff from China, and they bring it into the factory, open up a case, and install one board, and then seal it up, and then they box it up and say it's assembled in the United States. They're crying about those, but I think, well, like you said, that the jobs created from the tariffs far outnumber the jobs lost. And if you look at a lot of jobs lost, like the Element TV, they were making money off of China having the advantage over the United States. And
Exactly.
President Trump doesn't want that anymore.
You're exactly right. The people that you hear complaining about this are the people that spent the last 30 years importing junk from China and other countries, putting their stamp on it, not just like the TV company you're talking about, but other companies that are American companies. They're just mad because now they have to look at American components and things of this. If they would only look in the long term, everybody would see that it's kind of like, and I hate to quote Bush, but, you know, the rising sea lifts all boats. If you got people that can afford your product because they're working at the steel mill, then your TV sales are going to end up being better. But anyway, there's that. Ladies and gentlemen, your weekly Jihad report for August 4th to August 10th, 42 Jihad attacks, 205 killed, 185 injured, 3 suicide blasts, all this in 13 countries. The religion of peace. Atrocity of the week in Kabul, 34 students blown to bits in a classroom. Other recent misunderstandings of Islam on the 17th in India. Terrorists toss a grenade into the street, killing a passing civilian. On the 15th, Afghanistan, a suicide bomber takes out dozens of Shiites at a private school classroom. 34 to be exact. On the 13th in India also, a man running an eye clinic is abducted and murdered by Hizbul Mujahideen. Didn't say that word for a while, since the Soviets were in Afghanistan, actually. On the 13th in Nigeria, 10 villagers are blown to bits by 2 Fedayeen suicide bombers. On the 13th, the same day, in Afghanistan, bad week for Afghanistan, a suicide bomber takes out a guard outside an election commission. On the 11th, in Thailand, Muslim terrorists shoot a woman and her teenage daughter to death. The religion of peace, ladies and gentlemen, one body at a time.
Allahu Akbar, Allah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a longer show. I hope my co-host can stick around. We'll see what happens.
It's fine by me.
All right, good. I want to highlight something that's getting ready to happen. We've seen a lot of news coming out of Minnesota lately. We mentioned Imam Keith Ellison earlier. There is a congressional candidate that was in an incestuous relationship with her brother that is now going to probably represent Minneapolis-St. Paul. But this is by Larry Estevan, and what I've done with this article, there were so many links in it that I actually put this in the show notes links. So if you really want to follow up on this meeting that's getting ready to happen, the links are in the show notes links. Massive Muslim Brotherhood display of power to take place in Minnesota. Jihad in America. A public display of Muslim Brotherhood power will take place at the 73,000 capacity U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. Several of the speakers at this event have connections to the missing Somali youths. Others are leaders in the Muslim Brotherhood in this country. And in a report, Minneapolis KMSP, to celebrate Eid Ud Adha, the organization Super Eid hopes to bring together over 50,000 Muslims to pray on Tuesday at U.S. Bank Stadium. A celebration will follow at the Commons Park adjacent to the stadium. Don't let your dogs loose around there, ladies and gentlemen. From 6 a.m. to noon Tuesday, August 21st, Super Eid will host members of the Minnesota Muslim community for what the organization is calling a festive, family-friendly Eid prayer and celebration. The religious gathering is the second of its kind at U.S. Bank Stadium after Pulse, an evangelical Christian movement, hosted a concert event there on May 18th. Eid al-Adha is a Muslim festival that marks the culmination of the annual pilgrimage to Mecca and commemorates the sacrifice of Abraham. The Super Eid event will feature Eid prayer, kids' activities, a bazaar, and food vendors at the stadium. Let's look at some of the people that are going to be speaking. Asad Zaman is the executive director of the Muslim American Society in Minnesota. We've talked about that society several times. He also runs the notorious Tariq bin Ziyad Academy, a taxpayer-funded Islamic school that is also sponsored by the Islamic Relief Charity. Also speaking is the anti-Semitic Imam Walid Idris Al-Menisi. He's the head of the University of Minnesota, a hotbed of extremism. So how about that? We have a Muslim Brotherhood head of the University of Minnesota. I didn't realize that. Manasi also runs the Dar al-Farouk Islamic Center, a perennial bad neighbor. And the address, if you want to know, is right next to several Somali money exchange services, as well as Somali daycare businesses. Blogger Bob Carrillo of the Third Rail details the shadowy connections of Super Eid Inc., and you can catch that link in the show notes. Suite 106, Medina Management LLC, Medina Management Market, Medina Coffee Shop, another service which is a money transfer. I call it money laundering service, transferring, according to their website, only to one country, Somalia. When asked what the purpose of the Super Eid event was, the reply came that it was a display of power. It is indeed a display of power from the Sunni Muslim mafia in this country. Just wanted to make you guys aware of that. Maybe you might want to go research it on your own, look and see what's happening, maybe raise a couple feathers on social media. Who knows? What do you guys think? I see Norway's ready to chime in.
I just read a great comment from Rocky in our Spreaker chat room. He said, do Muslims pray towards magnetic or true Mecca?
Good one. That's for our military brothers out there.
Yeah, there you go. No, it's absolutely fantastic that they celebrate Eid al-Adha in this way in Minnesota. It beggars belief, really. I mean, you can just Google Eid al-Adha and go to the image section if Google hasn't banned it already. But it is, in reality, it is a bloodfest, lining up cattle and cutting their throats in good old-fashioned Islamic style.
Oh, bleed them out, let them shudder on the ground.
Yes, let them suffer. I mean, that sacrifices the meat, right? And I mean, when you look at the background for this Eid festivity, it stems from the Hajj, the
pilgrimage,
where they celebrate the trials and tribulations and victories of Islam. And I mean, the Hajj is absolutely. You should think, our Christian calendar starts year 0, and that's the year Jesus Christ was born. But Islam is quite another animal, and they actually celebrate the year 622 when they were kicked out of Mecca and went to Medina and actually they wandered around ransacking the caravans in the area, the trading caravans, for a couple of years, and then they attacked the city of Medina and massacred all the Jewish inhabitants of that trading city. As soon as the men had reached puberty, they were beheaded, and around 600 of them, if I remember correctly, by Muhammad himself. So it's fantastic that they celebrate this in America now. It's to my mind, it's sickening.
I wish they would do the whole 9 yards and get the camels and the goats and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Put them out in the public square because
on CNN.
Yeah, and I mean this is something that if you see the images and you've ever been around blood, I guarantee you could smell that blood in the air. Now there's something that I've thought about. Imagine a lot of times what we'll do in the West is we'll see a beheading or some other atrocity like that, and you'll wonder, how could they just look at life so cheaply? Well, just imagine, ladies and gentlemen, of your own childhood, and just think if every year when you went to that picnic with your family, that instead of having hamburgers and hot dogs, before that, you had to sit there and watch every animal that was used that you were going to eat be slaughtered in the middle, right in front of you, in the middle of the street or wherever they're at, and you're running around in the blood, and you do that every single year. Well, pretty soon you can figure out, that guy could behead somebody. You know, it's just
you're actually blunting the well, actually, it's twofold, because on the one hand you have this normality about cutting the throats of animals in front of you, but at the same time, in the Friday prayers, the Friday gathering in the mosques, they are indoctrinated into believing that infidels are nothing but animals. Actually, infidels, I think it is in the Quran or the Hadith, is described as lower than animals.
Absolutely. Jack, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm no expert on the religion of Islam like you two, so I just think I'm going to see how much coverage the mainstream media puts on it. Like, I've seen a couple articles like you had mentioned about the big celebration, but I haven't seen that many of the mainstream media actually put it out there. Usually they're pretty big about putting pro-Islamic stuff on the news, but I'm not sure if they did it with this.
I'll tell you something else you can do, ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested in these savages, is just type in, I don't know, Saudi Arabia and zoo and look under images. You look under any one of these Islamic countries and you look how they manage their zoos. I mean, wow. And of course, again, the PETA and PETA and all these other fake groups, they don't care. You know what I mean? They don't care. It's all politics with them.
I have to arrest Jack, if you permit me, brother, because you said the religion of Islam, but Islam, the good Dr. Bill Warner has made an eminent analysis of all the Islamic scriptures, the Quran, the Hadith, and the Sirah, and he is a mathematician and a physicist, and he came out with a number. Approximately 95% of the texts are political in nature, and about only 5% are religious in nature. So I would argue that Islam is not a religion, but a political ideology.
And you know, I would take that a step further, and I would say that one of the things that we should strive for is to get the federal government to understand that. Because if you use the lie that Islam is a religion primarily, then it gets First Amendment protection.
Yeah, and also it's protected as a religion because you have freedom of religion in America, but it isn't.
That would be in the First Amendment.
It is a fascist political ideology, and I sincerely mean that. If you look at how easily the Nazis during the World War II took in the Hajj Amin al-Husseini was his name, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, and let him help direct the extermination of Jews. It is practically the same ideology. I mean, the Nazis, they had 2.5 divisions, SS divisions, consisting of Muslims. So, I mean, history is littered
which were reviewed by the Grand Mufti himself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there is lots of photographic evidence, and the most prominent of these SS divisions really going hard on both Christians and Jews was the Hanshar division. So
they even had their version of the Bataan Death March.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you look at their symbol, their division's symbol, it's actually a scimitar. You know, the bowed sword of the Arabic nations. So history is full of these examples, and what is tragic today is that the educational system has completely broken down, and people are not taught history.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into our next two stories in a second, but let me tell you how the rest of this show is going to go, the rest of this episode. Norway is going to come with his segment, and then Jack is going to come with his segment, and then we're going to do winners and losers, and then you're going to call 412-206-6208, and you are going to determine how long the show lasts. So if you call, we will stay on the air. Don't call yet.
There you go.
Don't call yet. But if you call, we're not. See, I'm with Spotify now, so now I'm a little scared about the music.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna stick on talk, and we're not gonna have a DJ program after the show. We're gonna have a call-in segment. So start thinking about your questions, and get ready to dial in when we get done with winners and losers. Norway, it's your turn.
Let's see. I really had a hard time picking this week's story, but I actually figured that the story I went with is really strongly connected between the forest fires we've seen in the western United States, in California and surroundings, and the car fires in Sweden.
Oh yeah.
This week we saw an explosive number of car fires coordinated. Actually, it was a coordinated attack across Sweden as a whole. Every city there were car fires. I don't know. At the beginning of the week, there were 70 car fires, and I mean that is 70 fires as a whole. Some places they set whole parking lots ablaze. So, and the funny thing is that when you look at the enormous forest fires of the United States and the Swedish car fires, they are really, really closely linked to each other, because they're both the result of progressive politics, as it's called. The insane environmental legislation in parts of the United States, which has practically banned a sensible use of the forest and reducing the amount of fuel in the forest. They are absolutely linked to the so-called Democratic Party and their communist slash green communist cronies, and the same goes for Sweden. The car fires there, they are a direct result of the socialist policies in Sweden.
I never really put those two together. I'm glad you did that, because that was one of those stories that got swept under the rug here, and I'm glad you brought it up. Wow, there was an inferno all over the country.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
what was the government reaction? Wow.
There you go. Prime Minister Stefan Löfven, and he is as communist as you get it, and he's Prime Minister for the so-called Social Democrats of Sweden, and he just went on TV and said in the usual swearing. I mean, we swear a lot in northern Norway, and I think it's due to the weather. I mean, sometimes the weather and the climate here really makes you want to swear, but the Swedes, they're really bad. I mean, it's a lifestyle for them swearing. And he went on national TV seeming really indignated about what was going on, and said, what the hell are you guys doing? And I mean, how long has he been Prime Minister for the Social Democrats? It's his party that has led Sweden into this inferno, and it is not going to let up. But like in America, you have this sleight of hand, and they're going to shuffle the cards and try to sweep this under the rug. They signal now that criminal immigrants would be expelled from Sweden, but that is total BS. It's not going to happen. Sweden is continuing on this slope unless the right-wing Sweden Democrats are going to win. I think that party may right the downward spiral in Sweden, but I'm not holding my hopes up too high.
I sure hope they do. I mean, this is something that it's a global problem, and notoriously Europeans or Americans, Westerners, white people a lot are very slow to react, but most of the time, absolutely, when they do react, it makes a difference. Actually, every time in history. Jack, what's going on in Virginia? What's on your mind?
Well, I just want to get a little comment. In the United States, since it's such a mass territory, the leader of the community that would have had their cars burned like that would have just stood up and said, "Oh, they're just letting off some steam," right? But Sweden is not that. That's not that large of a country compared to the United States. So, I guess the guy had to lose his marbles there for what the hell is going on here. But here in the United States, one of the stories that I saw pop up Thursday, Friday, was this Manafort trial, and news organizations, mostly leftists, it was the Washington Post, BuzzFeed, Politico, New York Times, NBC, AP, and CNN, sued to get the judge of the case to release the names of the jurors. Now, think about that. The trial is under deliberation right now. They haven't come to a verdict yet. So this is an ongoing trial. the judge refused this request, and he stated that his life has been threatened and that he is now under U.S. Marshals protective custody. And that was the reason why he said that he wasn't going to allow those names to be released. That's one that kind of hit me the wrong way. Why is media trying to get involved into this case? This is Mueller's first case right here with Paul Manafort, and the judge being threatened. I mean, he didn't give any more details, but it's one of those things that's like, what's going on here?
And I read that the jury is actually scared, a lot of them.
Wouldn't you be?
Absolutely. I mean, this is something that you have to realize. You should never question the motivation of the media, because the media is not the media. The media is an arm of the communist left. I mean, lock, stock, and barrel. There's no differentiating, even with Fox. I mean, they made board changes and they've made programming changes, and it's clear if you watch them now. Some of the people say what they say with clenched teeth, but I'll never pay attention to them again. I mean, maybe here and there, but not the way I used to.
No, this is unprecedented in my lifetime, you know, and I'm sure the first portion of my life I didn't pay attention to any law court cases or anything, but now, you know, when you become an adult and start looking into these things and finding shady things here and here and here, like last week's story that I had with the deal with the plane going to Little Rock Air Force or the airport, and the speculation from the local people was like, you know, what else is here? It's Clinton papers. Right. And what came out a couple days later was the DOJ responded and said, no, it was just a major drug bust, and we were retrieving paperwork from it. And I'm thinking, that doesn't sound right either, because they've announced every single major drug bust. They've announced it and put it on the media immediately this year.
She's at a 757. They were going to get the drugs, baby.
Yeah,
the drugs and the weapons, man. Come on.
It was well, I guess Mina Airport is perhaps too small. I don't know, but 757, and if memory serves me correct, Jack, there were several huge cases of documents transported by that plane.
All packed in coffee grounds, right?
That's like we still don't know. Was it the shredding crew or was it the prosecution crew?
Well, maybe they were picking up bodies. I mean, was it a reefer plane?
Hey, you look at what happened in New Mexico with that crazy stuff we didn't even touch on.
With,
you know,
the bulldozers.
Judge said they were going to release the people, but they were being held on other charges. But the feds went in and basically bulldozed the compound.
Unreal.
Left bullets and paper there, but they took away a tractor trailer full of whatever they took.
You know,
the feds did that.
There's something buried under that, and it's not just that case. It's the Vegas thing, and I mean, law enforcement is out of control right now. And I've seen several. Obviously, we're always on the cutting edge of these things, ladies and gentlemen. You can rest assured that a lot of stuff that you hear, you've probably heard here for the first time, and that's probably why you keep coming back, because we've been on the cutting edge of this for a long time. It's almost where we need to abort some agencies and start over. I mean, I'm fully of that mindset. I think that the FBI is probably the easiest one to start with. And I think it's going to require, and this is going to sound crazy, but Norway, this is that slippery slope I was talking about. I think at this point, it's going to require a Stalinist type of purge of the leadership of the agency. I mean, I think it's that bad. When you look back, and we've got some age on us, you look back and you remember the FBI under Janet Reno and what happened at Ruby Ridge and what happened at Waco and the swiftness with which Tim, the guy that blew up the Murrow Federal Building, the absolute speed. That dude got caught and they killed him 15 minutes later, it seemed like. You know, and Charles Manson's dying in prison of natural causes.
Yeah, exactly. I think I completely agree with you that the leadership. This is a leadership problem. I mean, this is really bad leadership seeping down through the cracks and infecting the entire organization. But I'm sure that if you, I wouldn't use the term Stalinist. I would simply use the term judicial. I mean, they're not fulfilling their purpose in life, and if you took the entire leadership in Washington D.C. and just remove them and replace them by senior FBI agents from the various field offices and maybe a shrewd businessman or two of the caliber of Donald J. Trump, you would right that ship pretty darn quick. I think that the frustration in among the law-abiding FBI agents it is humongous.
It has to be. It absolutely has to be. And I would take it one step further. And I would be more apt to err in numbers. In other words, I would fire 7 instead of 3. And if you're caught up in it and you didn't do anything wrong, then shame on you for not telling on the guys that are above you. In other words, I wouldn't worry so much about people's careers as I would worry about the country. So I'd take a few levels of leadership at every single field office just to make sure this doesn't happen again. And then I would move the headquarters out of Washington, D.C., and I'd put it somewhere in Texas or somewhere very far away from the swamp.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I would do that with more than one agency.
Well, you're absolutely right, Hutch, because this is decades long in the building. You know, you're grooming people that are going to follow the same thing. You're not promoting the best. You're not aspiring to be the best representatives of the taxpayer money. You're basically billing. Why do we have the term deep state?
Right.
Unelected people that think that they can control the country.
Right.
Brennan is the number one name that comes to mind.
He's getting ready to come up. He's getting ready.
Victim.
He's going to come up in the next segment. But yeah, and it goes far beyond taxes. This is much bigger than worrying about a money situation. This is about the integrity of law enforcement at the federal government level. And when that's destroyed, like right now, you've got the Department of Justice that I don't trust. And the way it is right now, I'm looking at Brennan and I'm thinking, now this dude should already be in prison. You know, but he's not. But he's not yet. So the DOJ would be the next agency. The next one after that would be the IRS, and we go right down the agencies. Hopefully, the president gets another term, but first we have to get the midterms straight, so we have people in there that are supporting him. With that, let's go to winners and losers. Let's take it to the Norwegian Sea. Norway, your entry for this week.
Ooh, winners and losers.
If you don't have one, just say so.
Yeah, I got too many. That's the problem.
Oh, me too.
But I think this week's winner has to be, again, he is hard to miss, but this week's winner is definitely President Donald J. Trump.
I think that's 4 in a row, isn't it? 4 in a row?
I've lost count. I mean, the man is phenomenal. I mean, It is like standing in front of a barn door with a shotgun. You can't miss. So, I mean, what he's doing for the economy, what he's doing now, he's going to do something about the social media or socialist media, if you want, injustice and their persecution of Christians and conservatives. And I expect great things from that effort, as pretty much everything else he's got his fingers in. So, absolutely, he's my winner. My loser, that is a bit more difficult. I think it has to be split between the Prime Minister of Sweden, Mr. Stefan Löfven, and the Norwegian ex-minister of fisheries, and that might sound a little strange. That
not if you live in Norway, it doesn't.
Exactly. Fisheries in Norway is the second biggest industry after electricity production, which might come as a surprise. But we have a lot of hydroelectric power. Of course, we have oil as number one, but then comes hydroelectric power and fisheries. And this is really a warning to America, because we've talked about this a lot, Hutch, when we've done our Cold War radio shows about the infiltration on the right. I mean, you can see the Muslims and the left, the American left. You can see them conspire. It's quite easy. But I'm always more worried about what is going on in our own ranks. And this guy, Per Sandberg, which is the ex-fisheries minister for the Progress Party, which is, in my opinion, the only party worth voting for in Norway. He's getting a divorce from his wife, and not only that, he's been hanging out with a Bahare, Haidari Nasser Rad. I mean, this is like cut out of a spy novel. This woman, when you look at her, she is, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know they had, what do you call this, beauty contest? Yeah, exactly. I didn't know they had beauty contests in Iran, but they obviously do. And she was Miss Iran 2013, Miss Globe Iran 2014, and Miss Grand International Iran 2014. And then she came to Norway as a quote-unquote refugee right after that. Isn't that funny?
Interesting.
Yeah, and she traveled back to Iran this summer with the good fishery minister, Per Sandberg.
What a scumbag.
Exactly. And she had obviously deep ties to the government. And this is the classic honey trap. I mean, when you look at Per Sandberg, he isn't that much to look at, I think. You look at her, you understand that she won these beauty contests.
Right.
And you're asking yourself, what is that lady doing as a quote-unquote refugee in Norway? Then she hooks up with a prominent minister of the Norwegian conservative cabinet. Then they go to Iran, and this is why he had to leave his post in the end. He brought his electronic devices with him, and of course, he has all the government secrets there, and they quite easily has lifted those secrets. I'm pretty sure. She went there with him under the pretense that she would start a fish farm in Norway with connections to the Iranian government. So I mean, you can't make this up. And the whole story broke because his ex-wife wanted to get back at him, and she informed the national secret police here. So, but of course, this is from a conservative government. This was a big chunk of meat bone thrown to the wolves on the left. So it absolutely exploded, and of course he had to
go to the chat room and scroll down for some comedy from Rocky there, Norway, on your entry, and we'll move over to Jack for your winners and losers of the week.
Oh, I don't know if I could top Norway's deal, but the winners, to me, that was very easy. It's all of the folks in Gary, Indiana, with the U.S. Steel announcing almost $1 billion in investment into the steel manufacturing plant. It's going to be great to see Gary come back to life. It's been ignored for far too long, and it just makes me smile when I see President Trump, succeeding one deal after another, bringing manufacturing back to the United States. That is a great thing for this country.
Absolutely. Well said.
And the loser, that's another easy one. We talked about them multiple times tonight, and I'm just going to say it's the entire state of Minnesota.
Good point.
You sit there and you've got all the evidence you need, and you still elect a congressman. Thank goodness he's leaving the House. But
yeah, but
come on,
hold on. He's leaving the House, but he just got nailed for beating the shit out of his old lady. And where's he going?
Yeah,
he's going to be the Attorney General.
Right?
Oh, Minnesota, you're so screwed.
They still have a couple months to come to their senses and
they won't
not vote him in.
They won't. I mean, they got a Somali voting bloc there, apparently, that will elect incestuous woman. It's
so they got a celebration going to happen Tuesday with 50,000 at the Minnesota Vikings football stadium.
That's it. I mean, it's all there.
You can't make this up.
I mean, it makes for easy show notes, All right, so the way I do this is a little different. I try to get a little eccentric when I do my winners and losers. So bear with me here a little bit. My winner for this week is cultural Marxism, and I'll explain that in a minute. My loser, first of all, it's a dual-pronged loss. My initial loser is John Brennan. John Brennan has now been outed for who he is. You've seen mainstream media people admitting it and talking about him. I don't think he has too many more months to walk around free. I think that's just about finished. And the second, and hold on, caller, we'll get to you in a minute. The second loser, and much more important, is Christianity going forward. And let me explain that and explain the correlation between the winner, cultural Marxism, and the loser, Christianity going forward. And I don't know if this is political or not. I think it probably is. It probably has some root, and there was some assistance offered over the last 50 years by the Soviet Union / Russia / other anti-American entities that probably got some people into the Catholic Church that shouldn't have been there. But we have a report coming out of my state that is gathering attention, and it's only a microcosm of the Catholic Church in the rest of the country and world. But you have 300 scumbag son of a guns that have taken their positions of authority in the Catholic Church and pretty much set Christianity, all the good aspects and tenets of Christianity, or at least the Christian church in America, and given ammunition to the cultural Marxists to try to sell to the world, which they'll do. They've probably already begun. They probably had plans for doing this back in the 70s. Selling to the American people that Christianity is wrong, using the Catholic Church sexual perverts to do it. And I've seen people up in arms all over the country, as well they should be, about this. But sometimes they don't realize the big picture. And the big picture is why cultural Marxism is this week's winner. Because they've stuck another arrow in our beloved religion and one of the foundations of our representative republic. And it's sad, but I had to say that without trying to apologize for the Catholics or anything like the Catholic diocese. I mean, Bishop Worrell, I know the guy. And there's a special place in hell for him for being quiet. You know, nice guy otherwise, but the power gets him. And does horrible
it's not
things.
the first time with the Catholic Church,
No,
is it?
no,
You know?
100
We went
years.
through this. But what has never come, you had in the, I believe it was the 80s, the Boys Town deal with people in Congress and big wigs and all that. That got shut down.
That was called the Page controversy.
Right, that got shut down. You had the D.C. Madam ready to bust loose with all of the corruption and the disgusting behavior of elected people in the United States. And the day before she was going to appear in court, because she was going to bust loose with all her information, she conveniently hung herself in her mother's shed.
How about that?
You know?
Yeah.
So you see the stifling of the evil, but they're just so willing to destroy Christianity by bringing this up. You would think that would have been solved when it was brought up in the 90s, I believe, but you see a pattern. You live more years, and you see a pattern. It's
probably a little too big, and we're going to have to go through a lot more pain before we get it right. But ladies and gentlemen, it is time. 412-206-6208 if you'd like to be on the program. And let's welcome, and excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, who have been in the system previously. This is a new system, so I'm going to have to re-enter you. So 540, what's your name and what's on your mind?
This is Ken from King George.
All right, Ken, you're on.
And thank you, Susan, for your. I think I'm running back and forth between the garage and the trailer, trying to figure out some lighting issues. But I believe you said that she made that one heck of a donation to the show.
She did.
Okay.
Or she is.
That allowed you for this new system.
Absolutely. Thank you, Susanna.
So thank you. But yeah, you were talking about the whole, Catholic religion. They didn't want to elect JFK because he was Catholic.
True.
I mean, so why was that?
Well, the knowledge of the day. I'm trying to think of a term, and I can't think of it. But what was going on during that time was people were saying that they were afraid that John F. Kennedy was going to have a direct line to the Vatican, and the Vatican in Rome was going to control the United States government. It was ridiculous, but it was a true thing. It was conventional wisdom is what I was looking for, and that was the reason for that. I mean, it was, again, ridiculous, but then you have things like this that come in and they knock. I mean, if they would have taken care of this, and in all reality, this has probably been going on for a couple hundred years. This is not something that just started.
Yeah, but he was executed by, I believe, a communist, correct?
If you call Lee Harvey Oswald, who visited Moscow and lived there for a while and married a Russian, a communist, yeah.
So I mean, if they say that Russia hasn't been meddling in our elections for a long time, or it just started last week, they're full of shit.
They are. Norway.
Yeah, absolutely. Ken, you're right on the money. They're full of bleep, because ever since 1917, the communists they've had a power base in Russia, and they've tried to influence elections, and in many ways, I would say they have succeeded by penetrating their friends in the Democratic Party and turning the Democratic Party, so-called Democratic Party, communist. So in that sense, I would say that they've influenced the election quite a lot, but I don't buy that these agents of influence that Mueller is going after. That is pure BS. I don't buy that for a moment. When you looked at the crowd cameras on Right Side Broadcasting, panning the masses coming to every Trump rally, Trump won because it's Trump and nothing else.
Oh no, yeah, no, I agree.
Jack.
Yeah, I was busy in the chat room trying to get more callers, and it looks like we're getting some more in. But appreciate the call, Ken.
Yep, thanks, Ken. Make sure
Jack.
you call in again.
Hey.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
All right, let's go to 805. It looks like it's from California. You're on. What's your name and what's on your mind?
Hey, Hutch and Jack. My name is Rocky.
My man, my pilot.
You know me. But, yeah, I wanted to, I was trying to promote your after hours moments here. So, earlier you were talking about how California has completely fumbled the ball on forestry management, and that's actually what my grandfather did. He graduated in 1934 with a degree in forestry management and went on to World War II and everything else.
So were we on point?
Yeah. Exactly.
Nice.
No, he said he would spend, a week at a time at the top of a fire watch tower in the Pacific Northwest, and he would see exactly what would happen, and he knew even before environmentalists were a thing. He was just like, well, no, you just let these things burn, and it's not that big a deal.
Damn, I love it when our audience confirms what we say. Nice job.
And not only that, well, he was his degree was in forestry management, and that was in the early to mid 30s.
Right.
Grays Harbor College in Washington, and so he had a degree in this before anybody else, and he goes, yeah, no, just let them burn because that's the natural order of things, and it had nothing to do with religion or anything like that. He's like, no, that's just how nature works.
Right, and that was my point. My point was that this was going fine before we intervened, and I missed a point too. I covered the wind, and I covered the ignition with the lightning, but I forgot about April showers.
Right. By fighting every little fire,
right,
which we've been doing since the 1950s.
Oh, right. I mean, I belonged to a fire company. People went out to California from Pennsylvania to help them.
By doing that, it only makes the undergrowth worse, and it's choking out the deer population in California.
Yeah, anything that wanders on ground level, right?
Exactly. So that's.
It's gotten so bad. It's gotten so bad, Rocky, that I've read reports where California won't allow the most effective fire retardants in the state to be used. They're still scooping water out, which water is not really the best extinguisher. But like Hutch said, when I was at Fort Bragg, and even here in the Shenandoah or the George Washington National Forest, there is controlled burns on a continuous basis to keep that litter down. And that actually enriches the soil and actually encourages new growth. But go ahead, Rocky.
If you guys ever fly over California, which may not be that often, but you'll see, if you fly over Southern California, you'll see Camp Pendleton, and you'll see the wide fire breaks on the top of all the hills. And I remember when I got married, my wife says, "This looks so ugly." I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Just this bare earth over all these fire ridges or hills, not fire ridges. That would be
gotcha.
Only if you know what I'm talking about." But yeah, it goes, "This is so ugly." I'm like, okay, well, let the fire burn over everything,
All right, Rocky. Well, I'll tell you what, man. We appreciate the information, and I always love the on the ground, on the spot reporting. Thank you so much for bringing that to the audience.
Thank you, Rocky.
Definitely. Thanks,
love
Rocky.
you guys too. Oh yeah, Norway. Oh, Norway. I get to talk to Norway.
Hey, Rocky. That's all right.
Okay, thank you, brother,
Right.
and Jack, love you guys.
All right, thanks, man. Did you notice, Jack? Now I got to put this in there before I bring the next caller on. You notice how he had to get that Marine Corps dig in there?
Yeah.
We were talking at Fort Bragg, and he had to bring Pendleton up.
Yeah, but hey, to be honest, right before the show, I was watching Heartbreak Ridge. What a great movie!
There you go. All right, let's welcome Virginia to the program. 540. What's your name and what's on your mind? You're up. You've been waiting.
I guess I'm on deck, Hutch.
You are. Who do we got there?
Art Denman.
It's Artie.
Art. Okay, Art Denman. What's going on, Art?
How are you, Hutch? And Norway and Jack. And it's finally good to hear Rocky call in. Semper Fi. And my dad was 4th Marine on Iwo.
Wow.
So there's a special love of the Marine Corps for me.
Yeah, we love the Marines too. That was just some inter service, you know how it is.
Yeah, banter.
Hey, I was listening to Ken's very good question about JFK when he was interviewed about his allegiance to Rome, the Pope in particular, or the country. And I remember in that particular episode, I wasn't there, but as the account has it, he was speaking to Protestant ministers, and they were concerned about where his allegiance would be if he became president. And he really neutralized the whole deal by telling them that I believe in my own faith, and I won't step down from that. But, of course, when I was serving the country in the Navy and my PT boat was cut in half, the Pope couldn't do anything for me then.
True.
So he pretty much calmed them all down after those comments. And I truly believe that put that question to rest once and for all. Another interesting topic is you guys know where I've worked in the past, and have been on the show with Hutch in Norway, Jack, and this came up lately with an old friend of mine. We were talking about accidental firearms discharges by my fellow comrades in the Secret Service. And when I came out of training in '76, it was only a short time, really, after Kennedy had been assassinated. And I found this story pretty intriguing, that one of our guys supposedly emptied his gun at Lincoln's Ghost.
He had a Confederate flag on his truck, probably.
yeah.
Agent Booth.
Yeah,
Agent Booth, yes.
When I started asking people around, or asking folks about it, some would talk to me. These were the older guys on the job, and some wouldn't. And I finally found out that this guy was under what they call the tradesman's entrance, which is underneath the north portico. And off this corridor, I've sat on this post many a night, and it's very noisy. It would remind you of, being a janitor with turbines running and everything. They have several little offices down there. They have a florist shop, a carpenter's shop, and the kitchen entrance. And this fellow was on the post, and he claims, I guess, that he saw Lincoln's ghost. And he emptied his gun, and come to find out, it was about the time, or not long after, that I guess Mrs. Kennedy had claimed to have seen Lincoln's ghost. So, they wanted to rubber gun squad this guy, but by doing that, they would have been calling too much attention to Mrs. Kennedy's report. And I had a friend today. I was on Facebook with him, and he confirmed even the guy's last name that was on the job. And I'll just say his first name was Tony, and leave it at that.
So back then in the uniformed service in the '70s. So what was that? A .38 special?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, Smith and Wesson number 15.
Yeah,
good weapon, and he was a real lightful fella, but you could always tell by just the way he carried himself that he might have seen Lincoln's ghost.
Art, we love what you call the show. Jack has a question for you.
Yeah, I don't know. This could be top secret information, but I always wanted to know. What did Hillary charge when she rented the Lincoln bedroom in the White House? If you know.
I had heard about that. But, I really was working outside the White House when it happened. Yeah, I mean, I was at a different location. It's really pretty interesting because another celebrity that claimed to have seen Lincoln's ghost was Churchill. And when he came over, I guess, to talk about the war with FDR, he claimed that they said this was his usual mode at the White House. he'd go upstairs, get the booze out, smoke a cigar, and not have a stitch of clothing on. And he was soaking himself in the tub, and he claims that he saw Lincoln's ghost also.
Hey, Artie, I want to thank you for calling, my man. I appreciate it. I got and you really you bring something to the show. Call back anytime, my man. Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks Artie. Pleasure always, guys.
All
Have
right.
a good night.
Thanks,
You too. 541 from Eugene, Oregon. What's your name and what's on your mind? Eugene, you're up. 541 out of Eugene, Oregon. Going once. Going twice. Okay, he doesn't want to talk. That's fine. Let's see. What do we got now? There he is. He's back. Eugene, Oregon. You are on the air. What's on your mind? What's your name?
Hi, this is Marlene. First time calling into your show, Hutch. I finally got brave.
Hi, Marlene. Glad that you joined us.
Hey. Yeah. Anyway, I'll be real quick. I was just saying we also have fires in Southern Oregon, too, as well as California. And up in Eugene, you get some smoke, but it's not as bad, although I have heard that Portland is pretty nasty up there.
Now, how is Oregon as a state as leftist as we see, or is it regular where you just have your concentrations in the leftist Democrat-ruled areas like Portland and some of the other areas in Oregon?
I think you're right on that, Hutch. In my mind, I see Oregon as kind of purple.
Okay.
Because where I am in Eugene, if you look at a map, we're about 2 hours south of Portland. And up and down I-5 corridor, it's all pretty liberal. But you get over into Central Oregon, where I did live for about 2 years, and it's a little more conservative over there. So, yeah, we're kind of purple.
All right, I'm sorry. My grandson just came up to me. It's his 6th birthday, so we're coming on the back of that. He wanted to see something.
Happy birthday.
Yes.
Yeah, that was lovely, man. There was a whole lot of kids here all day. But yeah, I wonder, Marlene, about
how cool.
I know, right? And next weekend, I'm not sure about next weekend's show. We might have to move it. My son is getting married on Saturday, so I might be able to pull it off.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I might be able to pull
it
off.
That's awesome.
I know. And maybe we can get some more grandkids in here, but
there you go.
At any rate, I got to figure out the logistics. I'm pretty good at it. We'll see what happens.
Oh, I'm sure you are.
Hey, Marlene, I want to thank you for everything you do for the show. You do a lot. Thank you very much. And please,
you're welcome, Hutch.
Don't ever be afraid to call in. We will adjust.
I won't.
My guys will adjust everything, and we'll
time.
welcome you here.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling, Marlene.
It took a little nerve, but I'll do it again. Thanks, Hutch.
No nerves here. No nerves here. Thanks, Marlene.
Thanks, Marlene. Love the call.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Now you have like about 5 seconds to call the show. Somebody say the number.
412-206-6208.
We've got about 5 minutes and 15 seconds left in the program. Do you want to be the last caller? If not, it's no problem. But I want to thank everybody for participating. It makes it a little easier that way. I'm not going to be able to guarantee a 2-hour show every week. As a matter of fact, the Wayne Dupree show is going to go into a little bit of fundraising mode in the future, so we're going to have to split the time with that, which we will do. But again, like I said, my grandson had his 6th birthday today, and I got to say, Escondido, California, stop calling my show, man. You're not going to get on. You wanted to use the N-word on Wayne Dupree last night. That's not going to work on this show. You are never going to get on this show. 815 Joliet, Illinois. What's your name and what's on your mind?
I fooled you again there, Hutch. It's John from Texas.
Okay, but see, now, John, I have it on there as John from Texas, so that won't happen again. What's on your mind, sir?
Well, it's the first time I've called your show. I have listened to it a few times. Say hello to Jack in Norway. question for you guys is, with this stuff with the mosque and all that, do you think when Trump gets a stronger hold on the country that he'll start cracking down like that on that stuff, like the New Mexico stuff, particularly the judges, let them go? The only one of the positive signs I see now, I don't believe Trump was directly connected, but in Virginia, I don't know if you've seen that, where they cleared out the entire Supreme Court. They say it's political, but on party lines, they voted on it, and they cleared the bench. They fired them all.
Yeah, that was actually West Virginia, but
yes,
an excellent display of the power of the legislature, which is why the 2018 midterms are so important, is to get the legislative branch to where, I mean, the president can feel all he wants, but if he doesn't have backup from his legislative and judicial branch, which he's pretty much handling the judicial branch going forward, but the midterms are very important.
Right.
If that makes any sense to you. I mean, he can do a lot by himself, but to do something of that magnitude is going to require a whole lot of teaching from the pulpit and from us. And we've been trying to do it for years. And I think we're making some money, but he can't do it by himself. There has to be a public outcry. And we have go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, it's going to take time. It's going to take a long-term investment from the people of the United States. We can't just look at, hey, we elected a president. The president is just one person. He's in the executive branch. He can do what he can do. There's probably some things that he could have done, but if he would have done them the way he did, heavy-handed, he would have actually become what the left is accusing him of being now, trying to be a dictator. What President Trump is doing by going out to these rallies to support candidates that support him right now is sending a message to us, the American citizens, that this is the most important election, not the one that we elected him in. This is the one where we can turn the tide. Like Hutch has said many times, it takes a long time to turn a ship 180 degrees and head back towards a constitutional republic. So it's going to take time. We have to be patient and not get so frustrated when things aren't moving faster.
And John, let me add something to that too that I think is very important, not just for this specific point, but for us as a country going forward. And this is something that we've tried to do on the Wayne Dupree Show and on this show from the very beginning. As soon as Donald Trump won, we've been trying to say, and even if you listen to the president, he's said it many times. This is not about President Donald Trump. This is about us. This is about a movement that Donald Trump made possible, but we cannot let it end with Donald Trump, because if we concentrate on one man, dude, he's over 70 years old for one thing. And we have to look back in history and see where we failed before. And where did we fail most recently before? We failed by allowing President Ronald Reagan to select George H.W. Bush as his vice president. Now, he didn't select George H.W. Bush. George H.W. Bush was pushed on him.
Yes, he was.
Mike Pence may be a righteous individual, and he might be the best thing that ever came to Indiana. But Mike Pence is no movement guy.
No.
I would suggest, or I would hope, that the president in his second term would select somebody more in his own vein. In other words, somebody that is on the outside, not a former governor who's taken. Just think of all the money that that Vice President Pence has had to take over his career to be where he is. He owes people money. He owes people things. Nothing against the guy. But, John, do you see Mike Pence as the second chapter of MAGA?
Absolutely not. And like I said on Wayne's show, I didn't imply that it's all got to be with Trump. I think you've heard me say this on Wayne's show. Trump opened the door, and there's a big weight on the American public's shoulder, and it should be. But you also got, as we talked the other night about St. Louis, he opened the door, and some of these Republicans, regardless of the pressure they are under, they got to open their mouths, grow a set, and back the man.
No, I agree. And I think you've seen some inroads into that with the recent prominence of Jim Jordan. I mean,
absolutely.
I think this is something that if the stars line up and the planets are all in the right place, and somehow he can pull off taking over the House of Representatives, man, that's a big step.
Agreed.
All right, so thanks for calling, John. I got you in the system now. I will never say you're from Illinois again.
I'm just kidding. That's where I was from anyways. That's why I got the number. But thanks, guys. Thanks for a great show.
Yep, thanks for calling.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for the call, John.
All right, let's let me look at this board before. Oh, it's moving left and right. No, now it's Rocky called back and then he hung up, and this racist punk keeps calling back. But we're doing pretty good. But you know what? We're going to wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen. It was a great show tonight. I don't always get the opportunity to have this much time, but I decided we weren't going to play music. We were going to take your calls. I'm glad we did that. Final thoughts from Radio Norway.
Final thoughts. First of all, I would like to thank Suzanne for sponsoring this eminent calling system. It's working fantastic. So thank you very much, Suzanne. And a shout out to Marlene. Call again. That was a really good call, and it
was.
We always love to get the report from the boots on the ground, so to speak, and also Rocky, fantastic call. The whole idea that the good Lord made the forests to replenish and renew themselves by burning. It's what forests should be allowed to do, and it would keep forests and people living near forests much safer. So. And to Artie, finally. Arthur Denman, we did an interview with him, a whole show on the 21st of December last year. It's Cold War Radio show number 551. He has 25 years in the U.S. Secret Service, among other things, on his resume. And I hope Artie will make real his threat and actually write that biography of his time as a U.S. Secret Service man. I would be the first to read that book. It's been a lovely show, guys. Time flies. 2 hours. Boom. It's 3:04 in good old Norway in the night, 3:04 a.m., and I am ready to sign off. Thanks for a lovely company, Hutch and Jack, and give my best to your son on his big day next Saturday, Hutch.
Yeah, I will. And how can people get in touch with you on social media, Norway?
I am at Norway for Trump on Twitter and Gavin. That's Norway4 with the number 4. Have a blessed evening.
All right, did you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? What time it is? The man is giving his time that late for you and us. Thank you very much, Norway. We appreciate it. Jack, final thoughts.
Yeah, the man never sleeps, does he?
No.
But thanks, Norway. Thanks, Hutch.
Except when he's fishing.
Everybody
when he's fishing,
called in. Thank you to all the folks in the Spreaker chat room. You make our day. We do this for you. And Hutch was mentioning the Patreon. If you listen to the show and you love what we're doing here, take a stop by patreon.com/CWR and take a look there. And if you can help Hutch, then that's going to keep us going for the future. We love sharing our thoughts and discussing news that maybe you're not going to see on mainstream media. And I think that's a good thing. So thank you all. Thanks, Hutch.
All right, yeah, and thank you, Jack. And I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm so lucky that I have a wife that understands, because I put a little bit of time down here, and sometimes it's, takes away from some other things, but she knows the deal. Anyway, I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. on Facebook, Berg's Eye View on Twitter. I'm also Hutch Bailey Jr. on MeWe and some other things that I got to figure out. But we appreciate you calling in. Thanks for listening live and participating in the chat room. Some old school people I saw in there. Rob Underwood, glad to see you. James Chief in there. And everybody else. Jeff C. and other people that are just coming in every Saturday, 7 p.m. That's where we're at for now. Don't know how long that's going to continue. We might be on more than that. We got to see how developments happen on other platforms. Norway, what is that sound in the background?
That beautiful sound is probably the nearest and dearest song in my heart in Norway. It's Sønner av Norge, Sons of Norway, a very patriotic song. And for those of you who listen in the chat, you'll get my specially translated version now. God bless.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Cold War Radio. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for letting us into your life for 2 hours, 7 minutes, and 32 seconds. God bless.
talk about the things I've done, but I'm reclaiming my time. Yeah, you want to speak on the battles I've won, but I'm reclaiming my time. Ooh, well, that's not why I brought you here to share it. I'm reclaiming my time. Yeah, don't read my resume, cause I was there. I'm reclaiming my time. I'm reclaiming my time. Yes, I am. My time. Every minute. My time. Every second. My time. Stop talking. My time. Do you know the rules? My time. When it's my time. My time. I can take it back. My time. I'm reclaiming my time. Hey, what about the letter? Reclaiming my time. That I sent you way back when. Reclaiming my time. Give me the answer to my question. Reclaiming my time. Or don't open your mouth again. Yeah, reclaiming my time. Reclaiming my time. Reclaiming my time. Reclaiming my time. Yeah, all of my time.